Do you see that the future of politics is going to continue to go in this identity politics thing, or are we already seeing people kind of saying, I don't know, I think this is going too far in the general voting public?
Well, I think there's been a substantial backlash to the racial reckoning. I mean, and that's because it didn't work. Like, there are issues in black communities, just like there are issues in poor white communities. But what I think most honest people know is that very few of them at this point have to do with contemporary racism as versus, say, fatherlessness. So when we pulled back the police, I mean, we reduced funding in New York and L.A., we reduced stops in something like 28 of the 30 major cities. We actually gave this stuff a try for 2 or 3 years, and what you saw was that murder soared through the roof. We had 20,000 murders in 2020 for the first time since like 1995. 75% of the newer victims were black, so the black murder rate, the black people now make up more than half of all murders. So I think that looking at this, you saw a lot of other minority groups like black immigrants, Hispanics who've been almost ignored during all this despite being poorer on average than blacks, Arabs. I mean, you saw a lot of people moving toward the right, where Hispanics are now only 4 or 5% less Republican than Democratic in terms of generic ballot, that kind of thing. So I don't think that this is a consistent message. Dinesh D'Souza, the GOP activist, once said that if he were being honest, the thing that would be ideal for him as a Republican would be for the Democrats to become the party of sort of black slums, angry blue-haired feminists, and their grievances, with everyone else, including normal black and liberal and so on citizens, at least considering voting for the GOP. I don't think the Democrats are going to let that happen. So I think there's going to have to be a pullback from using people like Ilhan Omar and Patrice Cullors as spokespeople. I mean, those folks poll at 5 to 8% with most of the country.
Right.
There aren't that many people on Twitter,
Right. I think that's a thing about the Twitter thing is it really distorts how the world actually is, because there's a certain type of climate on the Twitter platform which is very aggressive, very insane, very, ideologically nerdy and stupid, and it's just not reflective of what average regular folks, whatever their income level, are thinking about. I saw somebody posted a meme. They asked a girl, what do you think about Roe v. Wade? And she said, I don't follow boxing. I mean, that's the average mindset. That's not what you get
that's really funny.
on Twitter,
Yeah, no, and I think that's really important. Like, if you look at Twitter or you look at Insta or even if you look at Facebook in terms of everyday habitual users, you're talking, maybe Facebook you get some housewives and so on as well, but I mean, you're talking about people that are very wired into the internet space, that are younger than average, richer than average. I mean, almost by definition, you need a personal computer. Way more involved with politics than the average. So I think for a while, corporations were making this mistake where they were posting polls on Twitter or on Facebook, and they thought that the responses were pretty typical. And what they were finding out was that when they put that content out into the general public, whether you're talking about a Hannah Gadsby comedy special or even the new Lord of the Rings, where you have like Polynesian elves and people are, watching and having fun, but are ridiculing it a little bit, ordinary citizens are kind of asking, how'd that happen? How those guys canoe over there to Middle Earth? So there's a significant difference between that very engaged, very left-leaning younger Twitter audience and the actual audience that your business is going to be marketing to or your party is going to be marketing to. And I think people are seeing that. I mean, about a year and a half ago, the niche corporate phrase, go woke, go broke, started being used in kind of mainstream conversation because we saw these crazy decisions like Dick's Sporting Goods stopped selling rifles, ammunition, and most of their fishing tackle. And people were wondering what could have possibly motivated that. And it turned out it, again, was Twitter reaction. It was 3 or 4 comments on Twitter.
Yeah.
You just saw this thing where the Daily Wire was nearly banned from one of the major podcast conferences. They apologized for having Ben Shapiro walk out on the floor.
Right.
I mean, one of the most popular guys in broadcast media since Rush. I mean, you can't really do that and be successful. So I think people are pulling back from that appeal to, the very limited niche audience. There's not really an option, I don't think.
Yeah, are a lot of your students at your college, are they into this identity politics thing, or what do they think of this stuff?
Well, college students are kind of the ideal audience if you want. Like, those are the only people who are kind of semi-justified in being, woke feminists. This is their time to experiment. They're in these radical spaces. They're trying out new things. They came from these small, African-American and Caucasian Kentucky towns, mostly at K-State. But some of them are. Many of them aren't. Even there, though, I think you're seeing that there's a bit of a feeling this has been tried and this might not be all that successful. And also that this doesn't work that well with kind of the complexity of modern life. Like 8% of the population is Asian. So in terms of being classified as white or black, if you're talking about anything from reparations to affirmative action, what do you do with that group? The answer's got to be a little more complex than the traditional, identitarian responses. So I feel like people are moving past this a little bit, but I don't know. We'll have to see in 10 years. There could easily be a second or third wave of it.